Hello everybody, welcome back. So glad to have you here. We had another question from our new series. You asked for it, and it's, what do we have to do to be saved? That's the question. What a great question. I'm going to start with a story. When I was young, I was like in grade, 4 maybe grade 5. And I went to a place that I was called then Columbia Bible Camp. It's now called Stillwood, but it was called Columbia Bible Camp then. And we went down to Cultus Lake and we were canoeing. And I even got a picture of it. I'm canoeing, having a great time. Me and a buddy, they gave us a rule. Go in this area, do not go around the point. Okay, there's this point of rocks that come out, and don't go past that. Well, a couple of my friends went past it. And they went on the other side. It's really windy there. And you know what? They were too weak and they couldn't paddle back. So they were kind of floating out there saying, help us, help us. So my buddy and I took our canoes and we paddled out there past the point, and we tried to hit their canoe and ram it to turn it around, and then they would paddle, but the wind would blow them away again. And eventually when we tried to get back, we couldn't get back either. And a couple other canoes came to help us. So now there's a bunch of canoes. We can't get back. And we're stuck. So we quickly paddled as best we could to the other side, to the shore. And we're in the woods. We pulled the canoes up and we were stranded. We were stuck. So here we are, all these kids. Fortunately, a leader came by and saw us. So a leader was there as well. And we were just waiting, and we were all upset. And I was actually traumatized. You know why? Because I realized something had dawned on me. I'm going to miss lunch. And true enough, we looked across the lake, and the buses, we saw them. They were leaving to go back to the camp, and they left us. We had no clue if they knew we were missing or what. Well, we're sitting there, and we're all kind of huddled around because it's kind of cold, and all of a sudden we heard bzzz. And it was like a wasp or a bee, a wasp, and it was flying around, and we looked up, and it came, no joke, it stung my friend right here, right on his nipple. Now, if you have ever gotten stung anywhere in your life, a nipple would be a terrible place to get stung. So this is terrible. We got a kid crying because he got stung. We're lost, and I'm missing lunch. This is a travesty. Finally, one of the leaders, finally said, I think the wind is dying down. I'm going to take a canoe, and I'm going to go and try and get help. So he went down the canoe, got in the canoe, and he paddled as hard as he could. And we watched him, and he finally went, and he made it around the point. We were all waiting there. We weren't sure what was going to happen or how long anything would take. And all of a sudden, we heard bzzz. And right away, we all went like this. But it wasn't a bee this time. It was actually a speedboat that our leader had gone and found a guy who owned a speedboat. He came over. We tied up all our canoes. He towed us all the way back over the lake. They came down, picked us up, brought us back to camp. And you know what? They saved some macaroni and cheese from lunch. All was good in the world of Mark. I was saved. So that's a story that I like telling about being rescued and saved. Now, honestly, it wasn't that big of a deal, but when we talk about our faith and when we come to Jesus and the change that happens in our life, we call it being saved. And the question is, how do we be saved? Or what do we need to do to be saved? Well, I remember asking students that over the years, and I get answers like, you go to church, read the Bible, stop swearing, give money to the poor, go on a mission trip, help others. And you know what? Those are all fine answers, but that's not how we're saved, not at all. Those are things about what it's like to be a Christian, things that we do as a Christian, but nothing about how we become a Christian. You can read the Bible all you want, but that doesn't make you a Christian. You can go to church every day of your life, and that does not make you a Christian. You can give millions of dollars to the church and to ministry. That doesn't make you a Christian. You can go on missions trips and be nice to as many people as you can, and that does not make you a Christian. All those things are based on what we do. But being a Christian is not based on what we do, but it's based on what Christ has done, what Christ has done. That's what it's about. See, Jesus came and lived a sinless life, and he was the only adequate sacrifice for our sin. And he willingly died on a Roman cross for our rescue and our ransom. And God raised him from the dead 3 days later, giving us a way out of our brokenness and sin, allowing us to be accepted by God, not based, again, on what we were able to do, because we couldn't save ourselves. I need to make that clear. We couldn't do enough. We couldn't do anything. But we were saved based on what Christ has done for us. Remember, when you're saved from something, it's usually based on someone else's work. Someone else came and rescued me that day on the lake. My leader went around the bend on his own to save us. We had to trust in him and trust in others to save us. And so often in really big rescues, like the time when some of our students were stranded, we had to call search and rescue and helicopters to come and pluck them off a cliff. True story. I'll tell it another time. But we had to trust in those search and rescue to save some students. You see, there's two parts to being saved. And we've talked about this in youth group. We've talked about it in other 10 talks. We're just going to keep going on it. It's to turn and to trust. So to turn from your sin towards God, and not going your own way anymore, but you're going to go God's way. That's turning. And the second is to trust, to fully believe, fully surrender the leadership of your life to Jesus. It reminds me of a passage in Mark 10, 17 to 22, on the rich young ruler, a guy who came up to Jesus, and he said this: "As Jesus was on his way, a man ran up to him and fell on his knees before him. 'Good teacher,' he asked, 'what must I do to inherit eternal life?' Some versions say, 'What must I do to be saved?' Same thing. 'Why do you call me good?' Jesus answered. 'No one is good except God alone. You know the commandments: you shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you should not give false testimony, you should not defraud, honor your mother and father.'" Jesus walked through the list of 10 commandments, really. He says, "Teacher," he declared, "all these I have kept since I was a boy." Jesus looked at him and loved him. "One thing you lack," he said. "Go sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me." It says, at this the man's face fell. He went away sad because he had great wealth. The rich young man was following religion. Religion equals rules. It's us trying to save ourselves. That's what religion is. Jesus actually wasn't a fan of religion. It's true. See, Jesus saw that in his answers, that he wasn't willing to fully trust Jesus because his true identity was in his money, was in his riches. Too many people think it's just enough to turn from your sin, but they never really trust Jesus with the leadership of their life. And that's the important part, is to turn and to trust, to live under the authority of Jesus. So we need to acknowledge our sin and what Christ has done for us, and then willingly give the control of our life to Jesus, living in such a way as to please God, obeying Him, and giving up these things that are contrary to how God would want us to live. See, to be a Christian is to identify with Christ. And that means that Jesus is at my core. I'm not just a musician. I'm a Christian who happens to play music. I'm not just a dad. I'm a Christian who happens to be a dad. I'm not just a meatitarian. I'm a Christian who likes to eat meat. Yeah. I'm not just a disc golfer. I'm a Christian who happens to play disc golf. You get the picture. Our identity is Jesus. Jesus is at the core. My identity is in Him, and He has authority in my life. In Acts 2:21, it says, "And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved." It's that simple. Turn and trust. God knows your heart. If you want to be saved, then call on Jesus. Acknowledge that you need forgiveness and want to turn from your sin. Put your full trust in Jesus as your leader, letting Him be the authority in your life. You can do that in a simple conversation with God, and we call that prayer. If you can do that, you can start your new life and journey with Jesus. If you need help with that or just want to talk with someone about that commitment, then you can email me anytime, and I would love to talk with you about that, answer your questions, and help you through. We also want you to know that a key part of growing once you become a Christian, once you're saved, that a key part of growing in a new faith is to grow together with other Jesus followers. So it's important to get connected to the youth group or the local church. And I'll be honest, if that's at Willingdon, great, but if it's at another church, that's great too. So that's the question, how is one saved? It's easy. Turn from your sin and put your full trust in Jesus, based not on what we do, but what on Christ has done for us. See you next week. Have a good one.